I love video games. It's my favorite hobby in the entire world to the point where I could spend all day playing them and never get bored. But unfortunately, the responsibilities of adult life get in the way, and I can't exactly spend 8 hours a day playing games anymore like I did in my high school days when all I had to worry about was homework. Because of that, I only have a couple or so hours a day to really sit down and play games nowadays, squarely landing me in the casual gamer position. And there's nothing wrong with that. Games are meant to be enjoyed at your own pace. But the problem that I've been beginning to notice is that more and more titles coming out today are becoming less and less casual friendly because it seems like every publisher just tries to exploit the fact that you don't have that much time in order to make a quick buck off of you. It feels like the gaming industry in general is increasingly becoming more hostile towards people who just want to enjoy games at their own pace, even though casuals make up the majority of the gaming consumer base. So why is it that modern gaming is getting worse for casual gamers as a whole? Games as a service. Now there's nothing wrong with live service games as a whole. Some of my favorite games are live service. They're a way for developers to infinitely add content in order to keep people consistently engaged with their game. And they're a way for players to keep playing the same game while having it still feel fresh. They're usually home to the most dedicated and hardcore players who put thousands upon thousands of hours into them over many years. Now, live service games themselves are not inherently casual unfriendly. In fact, they still make up the majority of the population of these type of games. But the problem is that titles like these are usually festering grounds for the most anti-consumer practices on the market, often targeting casual players. This is where we often see stuff like FOMO being implemented quite regularly and pretty egregiously too. Stuff like super duper limited time events where you have to play the game right now or else you'll miss out on all the cool stuff because it'll disappear forever after the event's over. This is inherently abrasive to casual players because not everyone has the time to play during these limited time periods. Oh, you wanted to get that super duper cool skin that's going away this weekend? Well, you better log on every day and do your daily quests that take about an hour to complete just so you can get those pretty looking pixels that you'll probably use for about a week. Or if you're really strapped for time and can't put in the hours to grind for it, you can just bypass all of that by straight up buying the item itself for a couple of bucks. This is just predatory behavior, and the sad part about it is that it works because it's making the publishers boatloads of money. So then that incentivizes developers to make more arduous grinds for the best items because that'll make the prospect of purchasing them much more enticing. Why spend an entire week of your life grinding for that super cool item when you can just spend 20 bucks and get it right now? Some publishers have gotten especially crafty with this by implementing FOMO within their battle passes as well, by making them only available to the current season they're on, and once the season is over, so too is that battle pass alongside all of its rewards. And not only that, but they make the free tracks for the battle passes extremely grindy so that buying them is much more of a necessity if you want to save your time and sanity. For example, the live service Suicide Squad game just recently had a brand new season release that's supposed to be Joker themed, and of course it features the Joker as a playable character. But for some reason the devs made it so that the Joker was locked behind a season battle pass, and if you wanted to play as him, you would need to either grind out dozens of hours to level your battle pass, or spend 10 bucks to skip all of that and get the Joker immediately. And naturally, since everyone expected to be able to play with the Joker at the beginning of the season, people were obviously upset that he was locked behind a grind wall, which ended up doing more damage to the goodwill of the fan base and ultimately dashed all hopes for this game to ever make a comeback. We can also see this phenomenon happening in pay-to-win live service games because if you're free to play, you're stuck grinding like a poor loser. But if you do pay, well, now you're down a couple dozen dollars for a couple of pixels that you'll probably forget in about a week. Either way, it's a lose-lose situation because you're either playing an inferior version of the game or you're forced to keep spending money in order to keep up with the constant content treadmill of the live service game. And the worst part is that with the way the current gaming industry trends are going, we'll be seeing more and more pay-to-win live service games releasing in the foreseeable future. Now keep in mind this isn't even the final form of publisher greed. The next natural step to this behavior is to implement them into single player titles as quote unquote time savers. In my opinion, this is the ultimate form of greed incarnate because not only are the publishers preying on casual players who don't have that much time in the day to play games, but they also intentionally design their games to take up more of your time in order to push you towards purchasing these time savers. For example, in the recent Assassin's Creed RPG trilogy, they featured EXP boosters within their in-game cash shops for people who don't want to grind out the levels. And not only that, but these games were intentionally made to make you feel like you're progressing at a snail's pace, so that buying the permanent EXP boost might seem like a pretty enticing deal for someone who only has like 3 hours a week to play video games. And unfortunately, other publishers have also caught wind of these practices, like Capcom for example, with many of the games they've been releasing lately. Devil May Cry 5, as much as I love that game, fell victim to this practice with the in-game currencies you could buy for real-world money. Dragon's Dogma 2 had a bunch of convenience features like teleport waystones being sold as microtransactions on the Steam store page. Resident Evil 4 Remake had upgrade tickets that you could buy to upgrade your weapons to their max potential without having to grind the materials. Keep in mind, these are single player titles that are trying to monetize casuals, by the way. These AAA companies are purposefully manufacturing a problem within their games that makes them more arduous and unfun to play so that they can sell you the solution to them. It's really slimeball behavior, but with the way the gaming industry is going, it seems like it's only going to get worse from here on out as more and more publishers try to hop on this trend. Who knows what else they're going to try to monetize 5 to 10 years from now. Maybe they'll start charging people $1 per magazine or something. Now, the last reason why modern gaming is getting worse for casual gamers is because the gaming culture itself has started to become less welcoming towards them. Gaming culture today is way different than it was 10 or even 20 years ago. Back then, nobody knew what the hell they were doing when they were playing games, and freely available information about them was very scarce because the internet was still in its infancy. So people just went into every game blind and they had a blast with them because nobody knew what was good or bad and everyone was still trying to figure things out. But with the rapid growth of the internet, it made sharing information and growing communities a lot easier. With this, people were able to share information about the games that they play all over the world within an instant, which allowed people to come up with the most optimal strategies, the best builds, the fastest EXP farms, etc. for the whole entire world to know. And sure, there's the argument that casuals don't really search for this kind of content on the internet. And I generally agree with that. I don't think the average gamer dad with a 9-to-5 job, a wife, and 2 kids is really going to be searching up what the most optimal build in Elden Ring is or where the fastest EXP farm is located. People like this are probably just hopping on the console after a long day of work, grabbing a cold one, and playing some games with the boys for a few hours on the weekend. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem, however, is that the gaming climate and a lot of online games today have shifted more towards the competitive side of them. Nowadays, it always feels like the people you're playing with or against are always tryharding every game because they want to play the most efficient setup or they want to min-max all of their stats to be the most beneficial as possible so that they can post about it on social media. Even in casual lobbies with no stakes, players are sweating extremely hard and they just have to play the best build or whatever is top tier in the meta so they can demolish Gamerdad Bob with only 2 hours a weekend to play. It becomes extremely unfun for the average gamer when they have to go against 19-year-old Timmy who spends 60 plus hours a week on the same game, practicing to be a professional gamer in the next MLG tournament. It's really obnoxious to play against because you're just out here trying new things out or just trying to chill with the boys, and you get steamrolled every single game. With the increased popularity of social media and live streaming, more people are trying to make a montage reel so they can become the next big Twitch streamer or content creator. The worst part about it all is that when you get these kinds of people on your team, they'll become the ones to flame you for not playing the top tier meta stuff. It's extremely annoying to run into these elitist players when you're trying to have fun, and it just ends up ruining the casual player experience. This phenomenon happens in pretty much every online multiplayer game under the sun. For example, in Overwatch, there will be people who will repeatedly beg you to swap heroes so that the team comp will be good. Or in Warzone, where people would ask why you're using a certain gun because it's trash according to some YouTuber. I remember in Helldivers 2 when it first came out, there were literally people in public lobbies who would kick players if they weren't running the absolute best loadout in the meta or weren't high enough level. Now, I'm not saying that it's the entire communities of these games that are like this, because a lot of them aren't, but there's always that loud minority of bad apples that ruin it for everyone else. And as the gaming industry grows, so too will this behavior become more commonplace. But that's just me. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.